Welcome to Let's Talk Love, a space for real conversations, fresh perspectives, and expert wisdom. We dive into the joys, the challenges, and the beauty of relationships, learning and growing in community. Join us as we expand our relational literacy, becoming better at love together. This week, Robin sits down with Dr. Nicole McNichols, an internationally renowned human sexuality professor and author of You Could Be Having Better Sex, to unpack the myths and shame that shape our sex lives, why so many of us were never taught how our bodies actually work, and how pleasure, communication, and emotional safety are skills we can all learn.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Let's Talk Love. We're going to be talking about sex for the next hour. How to have better sex. Dr. Nicole McNichols, you could be having better sex. This is what I enjoyed reading all week. The definitive guide to a happier, healthier, and hotter sex life. And who better to speak with and learn from than Dr. Nicole McNichols. So thank you for joining us.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you.
I've been listening to podcasts that you're on and reading your book and following you on Instagram. And I love it. You make it really fun to learn. I love listening to you and learning from you. I'm going to share a little bit about you because you teach a course at the University of Washington, 4,000 students a year that you're
Yeah.
teaching with sex ed. And it's not human sexuality, right? We're not calling it sex. Well, why not? It's sex
We
ed.
can call it whatever you
But
want.
it's amazing the work you're doing. Tell us how you got into it, because I think it's a great story on how it's like, we
my
don't know what's going to
God.
happen in our lives.
We
And
don't.
yeah,
Exactly. No, I mean, the story is basically I was a PhD. I was interested in studying loneliness, and I was interested in trying to uncover the causes for people's disconnection and how we could kind of bring people back to a place where they felt more centered in themselves and less lonely. And so I was a new hire in the psychology department at UW. And the professor who had taught the course for about 30 years before me in a different form fell and broke her leg. And as a new
Mhm.
faculty hire, I was just trying to, get my foot established in the door. Nobody else wanted to step in. They already had hundreds of students registered, so there was real panic. And so I joked that I offered myself forward Katniss Everdeen style because
Yeah.
nobody else wanted to do it. And what was amazing is that as soon as I started teaching it, I really realized, first of all, just how much curiosity students had and how much they had been denied information about sex and bodies and pleasure and connection, and how much their prior education had just been shaped by stigma and taboo and myths. And I realized that by helping to educate people about sex and their bodies and desire and all of the different beautiful, diverse ways that we experience sexual pleasure and the different things we're into, no matter who we are or what our vibe is or who we're attracted to, the more I could help students understand and embrace this, what I realized is that I was giving them a really powerful tool, because when you start to feel sexually empowered and when you have the
Mhm.
information to understand yourself at a really vulnerable, intimate, powerful level, that one domain of our life, it's not nearly as closed off from the other facets of who we are in the way that people assume, right? I mean, in other words, if you're able to learn to vocalize and value what you want and who you are in the bedroom, that very same skill set is going to show up in confidence and ease and less loneliness in other areas of your life.
Oh my gosh, does it ever?
Yeah.
Makes me just think we're human beings.
Right.
And part of that is having sexual desire, and we want pleasure. Like, that's our birthright,
It is.
joy and pleasure. And I think about how my sexuality has evolved. I would say really in the last, well, I would say maybe since 2016. Here we are in 2026, 10 years. It's been an evolution.
I
I think I
love
was really kind of, even though I was married for the first time, my sexuality wasn't where it is now.
that. Yeah.
And it's been an evolution. It's been growth. It's been openness, curiosity, like you talk about in your book and like you talk about in all of your work.
Yes.
And the creativity opens up, your imagination opens up. It's like this
Exactly.
very, very important part of you
Yeah.
Um, it's such an important part of us, our sexuality.
It really is. And I think it's just so important to acknowledge that that kind of exploration and growth, can be part of all of our sex lives, no matter how ingrained we think we are, no matter
Mhm.
how fixed our sexuality is, even if it's just discovering new pleasure zones or new ways that you like to have sex or new sort of emotional landscapes and energy within the experience that you want to try, we all evolve over time. And that's kind of what makes sex beautiful, and at the same time, people can be really worried because I think sometimes when they hear that somebody wants to help them have better sex, they almost worry that they're going to have to become a version of themselves that just
Yeah. Oh my
isn't
gosh, I gotta be a matrix
right.
now, or I'm
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
what is this BDM? Oh my god, I'm
Yeah,
not even gonna say it.
BDSM. Yeah,
Because
exactly.
I don't even know what I don't even know
Yeah, yeah,
anything
yeah,
about
yeah,
that. So, like,
yeah.
for example,
Bondage, discipline, sadism, masochism. Actually, there's disagreement in the field about the. But anyway, it's
yeah,
you don't and the idea here is yes, you need to grow, you need to be open to evolution and be led by curiosity, but no, you don't need to become a completely different person. And
no,
small tweaks and changes and steps can actually have a profound impact in your sexual well being, and sometimes are actually even more powerful than going out and completely upending everything that you've, known about yourself or tried before. So it's about experimentation, but do you have to go buy the whole leather getup and the dominatrix outfit and the whips and the chains? You can. I have a whole chapter in my book about that
yeah,
if that's what you're interested in exploring to one extent or the other. But you can also really benefit from just injecting small levels of micro novelty into your sex life that again lead to that evolution and change, but that don't involve trying something that is just going to completely change the sex that you already love, right? So in other words, if you
right.
feel like you are having mess sex and you want to have it, you're trying to, up level your sex life, as my students would call it. It's you don't need to completely throw out maybe the pleasurable activities that you are already enjoying. It's just about building on those, enhancing those, learning more tools for sexual communication, setting intimacy dates, learning about how our bodies experience desire and what's required to get us, particularly, us as individuals into the mood. It doesn't have to be a scary, complete reimagination of who you are.
Yes.
Yeah.
So in the book, you start in the first part of the book, you start with just um and just like you talked about with your students in class. It's like, where are people starting from? What are the beliefs? What are the myths? Where did you learn about sex? And a lot of us didn't get any. I mean, I remember sex ed in like junior high,
Yep.
and I went to a Catholic school. So trust me, it wasn't about sex. It was like, stay the F away from it, because
Exactly.
otherwise you're going to get pregnant and also God's going to condemn you.
Yes.
Okay. So
All right.
that was what we were that's how I was
Helpful.
raised to talk. So, and I went into my marriage that like, it's almost like, I was very inhibited, and I didn't realize I was that way
Yeah. Yeah.
all
Yeah.
those years, like just being almost like afraid to open up because I was being a bad girl, or
Right.
I don't know. I don't know. It was very programmed though. So you
Yeah.
have to unlearn
You have to
first.
unlearn so much. And that's the thing is, I mean, exactly, you just hit the nail on the head. We have no federally mandated sex education. The decision is left up to the states. About half offer sex education at all, but even of those states that do offer it, it's rarely comprehensive. It's rarely sex positive. It's a lot of times not even required to be medically accurate. I mean, can you imagine if we taught history classes that weren't historically accurate? We'd never tolerate
Right.
that. But sex is so taboo that we permit schools to teach things that are just simply not true, or casting all types of myths and taboo that don't really need to be shading how we approach sex. So yeah, I feel like I have students who come into my classroom, and I really need to kind of, with each new topic, we really need to begin by sort of dismantling what they already think they know about the topic, from everything from how their bodies work and anatomy and pleasure to how you communicate what you want and how you build desire in long-term relationships and how you approach sex and dating and hookup culture in healthy ways, right? It's just as much tearing down this as it is replacing that with information that is accurate and empowers them.
Yes, you talk about how really it's important to get to know yourself, right? Where
Yes.
like the society we're in is all about, okay, there's porn. I get that. And there's like looking out, looking for somebody else to like, okay, like how are they in the bedroom? But really, what do I like? How do I like to be touched? Do I even know my anatomy in the, like you talked about, right? It's like
Yeah.
understanding and like
Yes.
seeing, like looking, like,
Right.
it's like, you know what you look like down there?
Look,
You talk about that in your book, right? It's like,
I do. I don't care if you've like looked once before when you were 25. I
yeah,
want you to memorize it.
exactly.
I want you to be able to literally picture exactly what's being touched and how, because that ability to be that zeroed in on your particular anatomy and thinking about the types of pleasure and the types of pressure and direction that are feeling good to you, the more you can zero in on that, the more you can achieve a state of mindfulness during sex. We know from research from Dr. Lori Brotto, her work on sexual mindfulness, not only, her work shows that that's a really effective way for many people, especially women, to deal with issues with arousal and with low interest in sex, but it's also just for everyone a great tool just to be having better sex, right? In other words, really learning to focus on those
Yes.
cues in your body and what's feeling good and what you're anticipating, bringing your attention to your breath, as opposed to spending all this time spectatoring and judging ourselves from the outside and not really being present in the moment, which is what we tend to do because we see so much porn and we're in such a sex saturated culture where we see sex on every TV screen, but it's giving us sort of false expectations about what real sex is really like. That's just not helpful.
And you also talk about masturbation, right? And how
Yeah.
sometimes, like, people are like, if
Yeah.
I'm in a partnered relationship, then it's almost like you shouldn't be masturbating,
Oh, yeah.
or it's like almost like you're cheating on your partner. I don't think so. Like,
No.
absolutely not. But how important it is to learn your body through masturbation.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
Everyone should be masturbating. I mean, first of all, masturbation is a form of self-care. It feels
Yes.
good. It releases endorphins. It helps you sleep better at night. It relaxes you. It can be a good way to stave off stress. But we shame it so much. And, with women especially,
Mm.
there's this added layer of shame, particularly around sex toys, right? And most of which are designed to stimulate the clitoris, which is something that doesn't get stimulated during penetrative sex that easily. And yet we're taught to believe growing up when we first learn about sex that penetration is the best way to experience
Yeah.
pleasure, orgasm. And then if you're not having an orgasm from penetrative sex, you're somehow missing out on some holy grail sexual experience, which you're simply not. So yes, masturbating with different types of toys, right? And there's so many beautiful varieties that exist now, that some that provide suction on your clitoris, some that stimulate your clitoris and your G-spot, some that have AI technology embedded in it that
I don't doubt it.
the exact patterns that work for you personally to bring you to orgasm and then adapt. I mean, why wouldn't we want to be using these tools that can help us to achieve pleasure in such a powerful way? And yet, yes, we're made to feel ashamed of this. First of all, because historically, female sexual pleasure has really only been framed as appropriate or okay in the context of partnered sex, right? The idea of a woman having desire and being able to please herself and have an orgasm, right, has been framed as something that's dangerous. I mean, even Sigmund Freud labeled that as not as an immature orgasm, right? He labeled the only
Mm.
mature type of orgasms were vaginal, right? Which is just BS.
Yeah.
And so we're masturbating and we're having orgasms on our own. And it's just, yeah, this double, triple whammy. Then you hear myths like that masturbating with a sex toy will make you unable to enjoy sex with a partner, or that using a sex toy will fry out your
Like
clitoris and
desensitize your clitoris. Right. No. No.
No, totally doesn't. And then I feel like men also kind of get their own type of shame heaped on them. A lot of it comes from the fact that, nowadays a lot of men are masturbating in the context of watching porn, which is, its own huge topic. But, for the most part, it really, I'm not saying that some people for sure can develop compulsive porn use habits, but there are a lot of people watching a lot of porn who are having absolutely no negative effects from it. And in fact, are enjoying it. And it's a form of fantasy and self-care and it's harmless, or for some people, certain groups like women and queer people and couples who watch it together, it can actually have really positive benefits, right? So, again, it's like I always want to say, let's take a step back and instead of looking at people's opinions or what we've been taught, let's look at what the data says. And, the data says masturbation is healthy and that it's a way to connect you to your body, build sexual self-confidence. And guess what? You're going to be able to bring those skills into a partnered sexual experience as well to make that improve as well. So,
Yes.
yeah.
And the data is also saying over and over again how very healthy
Yeah.
sex is for us. When we are having healthy sexual experiences, whether it's by ourselves or with a partner, it's like there's so many benefits. And I
Yeah.
get it. Like
Oh,
I'm living it. I'm
absolutely.
living proof.
And
And it's
oh,
like
yeah.
I'm just so grateful,
Yeah.
but
No,
I could see how there's too
completely.
much shame around it.
I
And
know.
it's like even just the shame around you talk about this a lot, Nicole, around just
Yeah.
being able to talk about it, you know? Like
Exactly.
I want to have open conversations with my partner, and sometimes it's
Yeah.
not that comfortable, but I'm like, okay, we want to do this. Like
Yes.
and or even with my friends and being able to be
Yeah.
like let's talk about this. Let's talk
Exactly.
about like whatever it is to do with sex
Yeah.
because it's important.
It's so important, and yet most of us know more about the benefits of CBD than we do about right? It's like
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, but my students, their eyes bulge when I tell them that sex improves cardiovascular health, it boosts immunity, it protects the brain against degenerative diseases. There's even data showing that men who have more orgasms live longer. So, the physical benefits and that's not even getting into its impact on mental well-being and, the emotional connection that you build by having orgasms and by feeling like you're, taking care of yourself and connected to your body. And yes, it's amazing for your relationship. And we know from research from Dr. Amy Muse that when couples experience an improvement in their sex life, when they experience increased levels of sexual satisfaction, their level of relationship satisfaction as a result later on also improves. So,
Yes.
so it's important, right? And it does have, we can't say, of course, it's a, correlational study. We can't say it's causal, but the fact that the increase in sexual satisfaction is happening first and the increase in relationship satisfaction is happening second does suggest that one does tend to be leading into another.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's time for us to really prioritize it.
There was a few things there was a lot that I learned from you this week, so thank you.
Yeah.
But I really liked your idea around, like right now, okay, it's January 23rd when we're recording this episode. It's still a new year for all and I'm like, why not make one of your New Year's resolutions, like
Yeah,
for real,
for real.
um, your increased sexual satisfaction, increasing if you're with a partner, it's like, how can we have better sex? Let's say you're
Yes.
not even having any. Okay, it's our
Yeah.
New Year's resolution as a couple to make this a top priority for our relationship. And
Yes.
then what are the steps to getting there?
Yeah.
Because what you reinforce over and over again, which I fully am on board 100%, is like having good sex is there's skill
Yes.
involved, which means
Exactly.
that we can learn. This isn't something we're born with. Like we're not
Yep.
born being rock stars in the bedroom. I mean, come on.
Nope.
Like it takes practice. It takes a
It
lot of
takes
knowledge. Like
practice.
you have to get to know a lot. There's a lot of things going on
Yeah.
here.
Yep.
And that's okay. Like being like
Exactly.
lifelong learners and having good sex. Why not?
Why not? Yeah. And I love that. No, I love what you're saying because we're not, and part of saying let's prioritize sexual pleasure, let's prioritize pleasure in 2026.
Pleasure. In
Yeah, I mean,
all ways.
in
It's like
all ways,
yes.
and it's not sex, we're so used to thinking of it as like, "Oh, it's a treat," or you have to earn it before
No, you don't have
you
to earn it. It's
get lucky.
right.
Yeah. No, it's and we tend to do that with all forms of pleasure. It's just part of our puritanical upbringings, and
Yes.
that has comes from that history. And, no, let's understand, first of all, looking at all the data showing that pleasure leads to ego resilience. It leads to more creative thinking. When we experience more positive emotions, we tend to turn outward, have a broadening effect. We tend to be able to problem solve more efficiently. So pleasure isn't just something that is superfluous and feels good. It's actually something that's fundamental, not just for your mental well-being, but is going to build your overall life satisfaction as well. So I agree. Let's make 2026 the year that we prioritize pleasure,
Yeah.
especially sexual pleasure.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you mentioned it this earlier about intimacy dates. So
Yes.
this is something that I really like that term, and I love that practice. So it's something that my partner Hector and I do. Like we live in separate homes. We've got our kids week on, week off, and except for my son, I've got him more frequently. But when we see each other, it's like we know we've got our nights that we're going to have together, and we plan dates, and it's like yeah, right. But talk to us about intimacy dates because I love this concept.
Yeah. Okay. So if we take a step back and just look at this idea of putting anything related to intimacy on our calendar, I want to remove this fear that you're immediately going to be robbing the experience of the excitement and thrill and pleasure that it entails. We tend to put anything that we value on our calendars, and our sex lives should be no different. But many people, when they hear scheduling sex, what they're assuming is that you're midway through folding laundry and suddenly it's 8 p.m., just go jump into bed together. That is terrible advice, right? For a number of reasons. Again, sex is just it's not just a physical experience, it's also a mental and emotional one. And if we're expecting our bodies to go from full on productivity mode where we're just in this work, 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 get things done part of our day and part of our emotional state, of course we're not going to be able to jump into bed and experience pleasure and immediately feel turned on and be in the mood. And so that's where I've introduced this idea of an intimacy date, which is you're not just saying, okay, at 8 p.m., we're going to have sex. What we're going to do is set apart time where we give each other the tools and we give each other the attention to be able to connect first at more of an emotional level. Because in order to feel attraction, our nervous systems really need to come back down into a calmer state. And this can often happen, for example, even just through having periods of non-sexual physical touch where you're next to your partner, you're, touching, but it's not just immediately leading right to the sex act itself, but instead you're setting time apart first to do things like talk about not just your days and the details of things you need to get done, but just check in and say things like, how is life going for you right now? Right? What's what's working for you, right? What are you excited about? What are you anxious about? Tell me about what you're worried about. Tell me about what you're most looking forward to. Otherwise, we're just sort of approaching sex like it's the, mashing of genitals, which is really not what sex is should be reduced to. It's an emotional, relational, for some spiritual experience. And it's physically pleasurable. So we just need to be able to have some patience for our bodies and understand that, that is foreplay, right? And foreplay, yes, take the form of other types of, touch and cuddling and play that can help people become turned on. But there needs to be kind of that mental foreplay that's happening first, where I feel like you're both on the same page and connected and feeling like you want to kind of take it to that next level, right? Because ultimately, what that's doing is it's achieving a sense of emotional safety between you and your partner.
How important is safety in your relationship in order for you to have mind-blowing sex?
It is impossible to have mindful sex without safety.
Safe
And
we don't talk enough
it's
about
so important.
safety.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And, we're used to hearing about safety only in the context of sexual consent, right? But it exists in long-term 20-year, 30-year marriages as well, right? Where you have to have a sense that your partner cares about you, that they're not just coming to you and thinking of you as
As
another
some physical object to get
right
off.
to get off
But
on.
you hear about that.
You
I hear my
do.
friends talking about
Yeah.
that, and um, it's like, no.
No, I'm
Yeah,
not your masturbatory sleeve,
no.
Yes, right. We wanna be able to connect at an emotional level so that we can feel that. And I know a lot of people will say, "Okay, but, some people, they connect emotionally first, and then they feel sexually turned on, but some people need to have sex to feel emotionally connected." To me, I think that's a little bit of a cop out, right? I mean, look, if both people are looking to just jump in and, are on it and there and connected right the second they walk in the door, that's fantastic. But the reality is for the majority of people who are in long-term relationships, you kind of have to have a second where you're coming in from that other area of your life to
Mhm.
be able to emotionally connect with your partner before you're both going to feel kind of in the mood. It kind of feeds into this idea too that when we're having sex with a person, we're sort of mentally traveling to a different place with them, right? We're almost going on this erotic journey
Mm.
where we are showing sides of ourselves in a very vulnerable way that we may not feel safe showing other people, right? We're becoming slightly
Yes.
different versions of ourselves. Many times we're getting the emotional needs met in the sex that we're having that we may not be getting in other areas of our life, right? I mean, for example, and this is why sometimes the
Mm.
things that turn us on in the bedroom can be very politically incorrect, or
Mm.
can be things that kind of go against the person that we might think of as ourselves in the rest of our life. But, sex can be a chance to surrender, and it can be a chance to, if you feel like you are always in control and have 8 million responsibilities, maybe sex is a place where you go and the emotional need you get met is that sense of surrendering and having somebody else attend to you and pay attention to you and have your own needs met. Or maybe the bedroom is someplace where you really get to bring out that feeling of dominance, right? And that feeling of taking charge and that feeling of being the initiator. And oftentimes with couples, it can go back and forth. And this doesn't have to look like a dynamic where one person's dressed up as a dominatrix and the other's not. It can be, again, these forms of micro novelty, right? Maybe it's, you know, pinning your partner's hands up above their head. Maybe it's a little bit of light spanking. Maybe it's a little bit of dirty talk. Maybe it's just one person initiating and ravishing the other. But we need to establish that safety first if we're going to emotionally go to a place where we can express those desires and have them met in a really authentic, fulfilling way.
Yeah. I underline this part about safety. You said, "There is nothing worse than being physically naked with someone, but not emotionally bare." Because
Yes,
then there is an enormous disconnect between what you're experiencing and what your partner thinks you are experiencing.
exactly. Exactly.
Right. Because
Yeah,
it's very um, it's such a vulnerable you're vulnerable in your nakedness, right?
exactly.
But if you when you have that emotional connection, that emotional like, "Okay, am I safe to actually explore
Right.
all of my sexual desires?" Or safety plays a big part. Yeah.
Exactly. It does. It
Yeah.
does. Yeah, and safety, telling people to work on safety is not the hottest sex advice, right? People
No,
do not
it's
think.
not.
I kinda
But
get
you
this.
may need to.
Yeah, but you may need to, right? It's kind
Yeah.
of like when I tell people that the easiest thing they can do to improve their sex life is to get more sleep. Again, not sexy, but hugely powerful, you
Right.
know? Yeah.
You have a you tell an example, Nicole, in your book about, you give some great stories and great examples with clients and
Yeah.
friends, and you
Uh-huh.
were talking about your friend that you were walking with, right? And she and her husband weren't having sex, and it'd been months, and she's like, "I have
Yes.
no idea, like, I keep initiating, and he keeps saying no," and you're like, "Okay, well, you're trying to get down to it." Like, "Okay, what" and this is common, like, all the things you talk about in the book, we've heard of it or we've experienced it. And it's like, And it came down to he was feeling insecure. She didn't know that, right? So
Yes.
let's talk about that. Let's talk about sexual insecurity because I think
Yeah.
this, you break it down, and I think this is good. This is like important to
Yeah.
talk about.
So many people experience all different types of insecurity and shame,
Yeah.
whether it is the size and shape of your genitals or your body image issues, which there's just been an exploding amount of research around just how profound an impact that can have on its ability to really ruin your ability to be present during sex. Just, and that those characters, I specifically chose an example, right, of friends where it was the guy who was really struggling with
He
body
wasn't
image.
feeling good in his body anymore,
His
right? After the
body and his
pandemic, his mom had
heart.
died and he was going through the whole,
Yeah,
and right, he
it
wasn't eating properly anymore. He wasn't
no,
exercising. He's
but
like, I feel
yeah,
like crap. How can my wife
exactly.
want to be with me?
Exactly. And it just creates this dynamic where, she's feeling that like, oh my God, does it have something to do with me? Has he
Yeah.
lost attraction to me? And for him, no, it's all happening at this individual level where it's about his not being able to feel like he deserves to take care of himself, right? And kind of re-examining his relationship with his body, not because he needs to look better or because he needs to have a physique that looks a specific way, but so that he can feel in touch with his body, feel healthy, feel a sense of vitality, feel, deal with the inevitable feelings of anxiety and depression that are going to come if you've been treating your body really poorly, right? We
Hmm.
need to treat our bodies and our health in a way that with the respect and care that they deserve, right before we can expect them to be able to show up for us in a really vulnerable setting with another partner. So,
Yes.
but looking at those sources of body shame, right? And body image issues and thinking about, are there messages about sex that you grow up with that make you feel ashamed to experience desire even to begin with? Or maybe it has to do with sexual self-confidence because you don't feel confident disclosing through communication, telling your partner, what you really want. So it's just, a question of really needing to find a place where you can be honest and forthcoming and take care of yourself, both at an individual level, but then also, at a relational level, being able to communicate. But it's, with that character, Gail, I just really wanted to show what a profound effect all that insecurity and body shame and exhaustion that so many of us are struggling with, right? As a result of the fast paced world that we live in,
Yeah.
that's getting in the way of our sexual experiences.
And because of all those things, just like a domino effect. He's sleeping,
Yeah.
he's going to bed later, he's sleeping on the couch, falling asleep in front of the TV. She goes to
Yeah.
bed earlier, right? She's working out, she's all the things. And all of this is just creating more disconnect in their relationship.
Yes.
And they're both they're at a place where they're both thinking that the other thing is happening. Like he's
Yeah.
like, why do you even want to be with me? And so he's like not initiating sex or not even wanting it because he's
Yeah.
physically and emotionally not there.
Yep.
And she's like thinking, "Oh, he doesn't find me attractive anymore." So they're
Yeah.
on different pages. Like, but
Completely different people.
it doesn't discount the
Yeah.
love they have for each other and the
Yes.
relationship they both want to be in, but
Yep.
they're having this issue in their sexual health and in their relationship.
Exactly.
That's a big issue that you really want to address.
Yes, exactly. Because I think that we often make the mistake of assuming that the best way to improve your sex life is to add something, right? Like go get the handcuffs or the role play. And that can be
Right.
fabulous, right? That's great. But just as powerful sometimes are taking things away that are actually the true obstacles, whether it's a lack of sleep or poor diet or not attending to underlying anxiety or body image issues, right? Sometimes it's about really clearing out that mental erotic space
Yes.
because as soon as we remove all that pressure, all those sort of physical and mental obstacles, our desire naturally blooms, right? It just needs a little bit of oxygen to be able to get going.
Yes. I also, you talk about this, Nicole, in your life, and I've experienced it myself after having kids. I still have kids.
Yeah, they
But
did.
after when they're little and, like, all that crazy,
Yes.
come on, like, you've got
Oh
little
my
ones
gosh.
and you're touched all day and you're
Oh,
breastfeeding and you're
it's
working,
exhausting.
they're working, you're not sleeping, all the things. Like, let's just get real about there's
Yes,
phases and seasons in our lives when sex is gonna take the back burner, and that's
right,
okay. Like, and just being
right.
I think there's so much around just how important it is for us to just be open and transparent and communicate.
Exactly.
And,
I
yeah.
mean, I have 3 kids. I have,
Mhm.
now that I've got 2 teenagers and an 11-year-old, but I remember when they were infants and babies and the exhaustion that comes with that and feeling touched out at the end of the day. And I think, and then for women getting in to bed at the end of the day after breastfeeding and feeling touched out and like your partner turns to you and you have this horrible feeling that it's just one more person's physical needs that
Yeah.
need getting to. And then the guilt that comes from that feeling and knowing that this person that you love more than anything is just trying to physically connect with you, but you can't. And then the partner, right? I remember my husband, just starting to feel a sense of rejection and there can be resentments that then start to build. I mean, that period after a couple has kids, it is just so exhausting. And this is where, again, it's, so important to, first of all, it's just one more example of when challenges that are happening to you at an individual level, just meaning the exhaustion that comes with taking care of an
Mm.
infant are going to get in the way of sexual intimacy. But it also just shows the importance of intimacy dates because if you
Right.
have the babysitter come an hour early and connect and have sex before you go out to dinner. And
I really like that
so,
tip. I think it's a great one. Yeah.
yeah,
Having sex before the big dinner.
I know when I get home from dinner, I'm a little bit drunk, I'm a little bit full. Like it's typically better beforehand.
Yeah.
Not always realistic, but yeah, just intentionally set that time apart, right? If your kids are super little and you're getting a babysitter, just get them to come an hour earlier,
Yeah.
right? And close the door then. It's kind of exciting. It feels like, it's a little bit taboo. But yeah, it's really about sort of carving out that time, again.
It's carving out that time that doesn't have to be sexual. It's
Exactly.
intimate. This is the reason it's called an intimacy date. It's because
Intimacy. Yeah.
whatever it is, it's our time.
Yes,
We are putting
exactly.
our phones away and
Yes.
we are going to be present for each other.
Yes, exactly, exactly.
So
Yeah.
you have there's so many things that people can refer to in your book. It's awesome. And
Yeah.
you've got a list, just a list of great questions that you can ask each other
Mhm.
to really open up conversation around sex because you have to talk about it. And I
Yes.
know like a lot of people don't do that.
Nope. They don't feel comfortable. And I mean,
Right?
because yeah, exactly. And we're so used to hearing, of course, communication. I know it's important, but
But what does that mean
what
exactly?
does it mean, right? That's sort of not helpful information because what does it mean? And so I talk about communication in my book as sort of having 3 phases that each map on to the pleasure cycle, right? Which also has 3 phases. So the pleasure cycle, it goes from wanting to liking to learning, right? And so our communication needs to borrow from those phases. The communication that comes before the sexual experience, then the level of communication that's happening during the sexual
During.
experience, and
Yeah.
then the reflection that happens afterwards, right? So, yeah, I mean, I think that you need to be having both larger conversations about sex where you're talking about your turn-ons, your fantasies, things you might want to try, things that, where you intentionally ask each other, what's something that you've always wanted to try or that you fantasize about? But that maybe you've been too scared to ask, right? Or what's the best sex we've ever had? And is there a way to
Mhm.
kind of lean into that and use that as the foundation for to build further types of exploratory sexual experiences, right? So having those conversations at a time where you both have your clothes on, you're
Mhm.
not feeling vulnerable, right? You have more of that safety about sort of the larger things you want to try is really critical. But then using communication during the experience is critical as well, right? So I even had a viral video that was literally called make noise during sex.
Yes, yes,
The reason for this, there's many reasons, but the
yes.
most important one is that it's
It's
giving
feedback.
information to your partner about what feels good. And guess what? We all respond really well to positive reinforcement.
Yeah,
In general, positive communication works better
mm,
than criticism and rejection,
for sure.
especially in a context as vulnerable as the bedroom. So when we're
Mhm.
giving those sighs and moans, and then if you feel comfortable articulating, can you touch me here? Can we try this? Using behavioral cues as well, subtle shifts in position, moving your partner's hand, saying like this, using a phrase like guide me. All of these things can really enhance the sexual experience and make it more pleasurable, right? And then trying to, after the experience, really lean into reflecting, right? We've borrowed this wonderful concept from the kink community that's actually called aftercare, right?
Aftercare.
Aftercare, where you quite literally are, cuddling and connecting with your partner. And it's almost like a sexual debrief where you're able to talk about, well, what went well there? Like it felt really good when you did this, or it was so hot when you did that, or, and even to even extend that sexual afterglow effect, which typically lasts for about 48 hours. If you're
Mm,
really reflecting in and thinking about it, right? Even the next day, just saying to your partner, wow, that was really amazing. That's going to actually start
yes.
to even then build desire for the next time you have sex, right? Because that learning phase is going to then feed into this initial wanting phase. So it's just, it's an upward cycle, this types of communication. There's different tools and I, give all different types of prompts in my book to use at each phase. But if you can really master that art of communication through the whole pleasure cycle, through the before, during, and after of sex, you're going to really improve the pleasure you're feeling and connection in a big, profound way.
Yeah. I just, I love talking to you, and it's just been such a pleasure. What would be like, just even one key takeaway from your book, that you think, "This is why you have to read this book," because I hope everybody picks up your book and reads it because I think it's amazing.
That no matter who you are, what you're into, what your vibe is, what your orientation is, what kind of relationship you want to be in or don't be in, better sex is accessible. You just don't know where to start. You don't have the correct tools available to you. And I am so happy to be providing you with a blueprint, literally, for understanding and embracing all the elements of your wants, desires, the psychology of it, the anatomy of it, so that you can really feel empowered to have truly authentic, pleasurable, connected sexual experiences.
We can all have it. Yep.
Yes.
Yeah. It's all available to us, all accessible. So,
Yes,
thank
it
you,
is.
Dr. Nicole McNichols.
Thank you. This was such a pleasure.
It really was a very, very huge pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening. This podcast is hosted by Robin Ducharme. Please subscribe and rate our show. We value your feedback as it helps us bring you the resources you need to improve your relationships. Visit us at realloveready.com to attend our annual In Bloom Summit and to access more ways to build your relational literacy. We honor and express gratitude to the Coast Salish people, the stewards of the land on which we work and play. Blessings to you in love and in life.